I hear you've got some new adventures that you're starting.
I do. I am opening up a yoga studio in Forest Hill, Richmond, Virginia.
Yeah.
And our primary commitment is to be trauma and addiction informed
Okay.
and to just kind of spring from there to promote healing in our community.
Um, so we've got a couple different aspects here I'd love to talk to you about. So first of all, just, I'm sure maybe you didn't know, everyone, this is, Melissa's a good friend I've met. I've met her through another great friend, and she's in the process of becoming an entrepreneur to the extent that she considered herself that or didn't consider herself that before. And you were in the legal field for a while. You were a paralegal, did some domestic relation work. I definitely can relate to that. The other aspect of you is that we all come from trauma and have different trauma stories, none of which are more important than the others. It's like they can't be compared. So what was the main thing that said, screw it, I'm going to open up my own stuff and do my own thing?
Well, I had a studio in Virginia Beach in the late 90s, early 2000s. And unfortunately, my husband was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer that had metastasized. And
This is what year?
This is 2004. And we had 3 kids that needed, my obvious attention. And I decided to close so that I could, take care of my family responsibilities. And, one of the things he made me promise was that I would, reopen at some point. And
did you own that studio yourself? Was that your baby?
It was all me.
How long was it open?
7 years.
Okay. How many, if you recall, and you may or you may not, what was the growth of the business step? Like, can you remember any growth numbers, membership?
Oh, well, so in 98, there really weren't. And in fact, I was the first yoga studio in Virginia Beach.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And so it was really a new animal. And I would say we went from charging, when I opened, I still can't believe it, we charged $6 a class. And, before it was all said and done, I think we were doing unlimited memberships for $99, which is in line with what's happening in the industry today. But I think our drop-ins went up to 15. I mean, I started with 2 people in class. I ended with 20 people in class, and that was the cap because I feel like that's the right number as a teacher. But yeah, we grew. I also, we had contracts with MWR, with the Navy. We taught classes actually to SEAL Team 6. This is all pre 9/11.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was super cool.
What is the thing that's driving you for the trauma work with the yoga? Because I know trauma-informed stuff is becoming really common and it's kind of becoming really rote, Everyone right now is popping on the trauma-informed train now kind of everywhere. What can you talk to me about trauma-informed yoga or the trauma-informed practices? Because it's not just yoga that you're doing. I think you're doing some other things too. I remember you saying Reiki and you're doing some other work as well. Do you mind getting into some of that?
Well, I mean, selfishly, it came from my own experiences with trauma and seeking methods to heal myself, and then took a couple trainings with Bessel van der Kolk and my main teacher, Rolf Gates, and just really understanding how much the body is involved,
right,
and processing trauma, and how the body keeps a score, right? It's the name of Bessel's book, and how we store these experiences literally within ourselves, and we can talk about it all day long, right? But until we actually have some type of physical release,
right,
we're not going to actually be able to heal. And so I had that experience, although it's for me, it's an ever evolving process. Like, I think I'm done with that. And then something will happen and I'll realize I haven't, really completed the work yet. And I have to, do some more work. But being a Gen Xer, I was talking to somebody earlier about that. My generation was very much taught, whether spoken or not, that we just didn't talk about it, right? Something bad happened, you just shove it down as far as you can get into your soul and move on. And, now my generation is, into the middle age and their kids are leaving home, and a lot of the distractions that we all have when we're younger are starting to leave. These issues are starting to pop up, and they can manifest physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And I think the somatic experience, although it's not necessarily, I think we talked about earlier, it's not necessarily embraced by the therapeutic community. I've seen it. I've seen it heal people. I've watched it. I've experienced it myself. And that's where I'm coming from.
I've got a question, I guess, kind of exploring this a little bit more, because you're a female, I'm a male, right? And I'm kind of in a right. I'm known for making obvious statements. It's something I'm best known for. I guess the reason why I bring that up and start from that perspective is going along with this. I was thinking about, as I was talking to you and thinking about talking to you about my own struggles with trying to go to yoga. Right. And so we talk like men don't take care of their bodies. Men go to the gym. Men like think that physical labor and like fight sports and things like that to a certain extent. And I don't want to exclude all of the men and paint with too broad of a brush. I would just say that my experience as a male and those men that I interact with, that seems to be the thing. And it brought me back to this memory that a lot of times everything that I'm now had to like really work through, men do this weird thing. And that's where I'm getting this question. Men, in my experience, sit and we'll almost kind of we'll talk about almost a contest about how shitty our childhoods were, like the things that grandma, like the wooden spoons that grandma broke over me, and then,
yeah.
And like and we almost make a joke of it amongst men, because one of the big issues that I am really focused on is the fact that men are not being vulnerable with each other with the actual damage. Like, we make a joke about it. What is your experience with how women have started to talk? Because you mentioned being a Gen Xer and we just don't talk about it, right? Can you share with me a little bit of your experience of like, how are women behind closed doors when men aren't there? Because we all break into our own, we all break into our own little cliques of men and women. What do those conversations look like among women?
I think humor, it's a coping mechanism.
It is.
Whether or not it's productive or not, I'm not sure.
It's a perfect point. And so you see it more as like the kind of the joking and kind of not really giving it its due course, in those conversations. At least as a group. Is it different when they're one-on? I guess do you guys have a better chance of having kind of the one-on-one conversations with each other?
I don't think it only applies to trauma. I think and again, I'm a girl, so I can't speak for men necessarily, but my observations are that women are more, I can't think of the word, but they're going to allow themselves to be more vulnerable, right? Particularly,
women tend to be more open to the emotional aspects, right?
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. Like, so, me and my best friend or my best friends, we may joke about something, but we're willing to then dive deeper into actually how it's affected us and how it has driven certain decisions and then become solution focused, because we've recognized the issue and now we want to get better, right? I'm not saying, again, I can't speak for every woman on the planet, but my experience with my close friends is that, we don't want to be trapped by these things. We don't want it to drive our relationships. So we're willing to go deep so that we can heal.
Right. And so as we talk trauma and talk, yoga with Melissa, and she goes by Melissa Ann, if I can say. Is that the way you is that what you go by? And Balance is the name of your yoga studio, correct?
Yes.
So starting up in Forest Hill, which is on the south side of Richmond, across the river. We started getting into a bit of a story about it, and she started talking to me on break, and I was like, we can't talk off camera, you know? That's the rule of these things, you know? You can't talk off camera. So I do criminal defense, Melissa, and I represent people accused of terrible things and always struggle with kind of what's going on with the victim, because there's always a separation from the defense side and the prosecution's witnesses. And in fact, sometimes they hide you particularly from us. Can you talk to me a little bit more about what happened to you in Virginia Beach? You were talking about the gentleman that you ran into who was not so kind. Can you give me a little bit of that story? Like what's a little bit of the story with that? Because that sounds like that's a pretty big event in your life.
Well, this particular day, I was coming up Oceanfront Avenue on the way home, and this gentleman ran past me, and all the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I literally stopped running, and I assumed the reason why I had that visceral reaction was that he was a black man, and I was raised to fear black men, right? And so I immediately, after I had that reaction, I talked myself out of it. Like, no, that's not real. You don't be scared. Well, 2 seconds later, he was behind me with a knife at my throat, and we proceeded to basically duke it out down about 3 more streets. He would knock me down. I'd get back up. How I eventually got away from him was I started talking and told him I had asthma. I don't know where that came from because I don't have it. And that I was a mother, and that I was a sister, and I was a daughter, and I just tried to, humanize myself to him. And then finally, after, I don't know how long it was whatever, 3 streets, he let me go. And I fortunately I was beat up. My jaw was broken. I had a couple of cracked ribs, and I was, pretty beat up in the face, but I was not sexually assaulted. And I ran to a neighbor's house. They called the police. I was checked out, all of those things. And then...
That's incredible. What if I don't mean to...
No,
so
do it.
What time of day or night was this?
It was dark, but it was like 5:30.
And what day of the week?
Like a Tuesday.
How is it possible that sort of behavior happens for 3 streets and there's no passersby, there's no one can, like, what happened?
Well, a lot of those homes are vacation homes for Richmonders, right? So I was looking around.
It was February too, you said, right?
And trust me, I was looking for lights on, looking for anybody, and it was just, no one was there. No one drove by. No one was walking. It was cold. It was really cold.
Yeah. And those ocean towns, when it's cold, right there off the ocean, it's cold. It's bone chilling. Like a lot of people, if they don't live, if they're not having experienced a cold day on the ocean.
So I was a tremendous athlete being out there running. I'm kidding.
Right. That's what you get when you go to yoga.
There you go.
There you go.
So, please take a report. I literally am just paralyzed with fear. And then the first night, my mom came over to watch my boys so I could get out. And I'm driving up the road, and I think there he is, right?
This is the next day?
This is a week later.
A week later.
When he attacked me, he had on a red sweatshirt. This fella had a red sweatshirt on, running pants, tiny dreadlocks, a skull cap. He was the guy, right? So I had one of those ginormous, early 90s cell phones, and called the police. They miraculously picked him up. They brought me a photo lineup. I picked him out of the lineup. We went to the arraignment, right? I picked him out of the courtroom, and the first thing that the defense attorney asked me was, what was I wearing?
What were you wearing?
What was I wearing? Right, like that has anything to do with any of it. So the judge shut her down pretty quickly. And
Oh, it was a female defense attorney.
public defender. Yeah. So Janet Rinaldi was her name. Janet Rinaldi was the public defender, and Pamela Albert was the Commonwealth's attorney, and Thomas Shadrick was the judge. So they took him right in. He was incarcerated right at that moment.
And you did actual lineups, right? They actually had like a perp, what they call a perp walk or a
Yep. So fast forward, we go to trial. I testify. He testifies. His defense was that he was gay. So therefore, this was in front of a jury. The jury was out for less than an hour and convicted him for kidnapping and malicious wounding because, like I said, he really messed me up. So meanwhile, while this is all happening, women were continuing to get raped in the same neighborhood, right? So when he was put away, these assaults kept happening, right? There had been, and unbeknownst to me, there had been a couple before me, and then there was 3 or 4 after me.
Yeah, you named these. What was the name of the?
He was the North End rapist
of Virginia Beach in the 90s.
Yep.
What are some thoughts you have to not discourage people? Do you have any advice for the up and coming entrepreneur, up and coming yoga teacher, or Reiki master? Because you're also a Reiki master, right?
Yep. Yes. One of the first things is, and this was just such a rookie move on my part, but I was so excited, right? Like I have been dreaming of this for, 20 plus years of reopening, and I made some rookie mistakes. Like I didn't take my lease to Charlie and have him review it before I signed it.
You didn't know Charlie back when.
I didn't, but I certainly could have hired an attorney, right?
Well, keep in mind, and I tell this to people all the time. What's the enemy of good? What's the enemy of good?
Bad?
Nope.
Evil?
Nope.
Good intentions?
Nope.
Satan?
Perfect. The enemy of good is perfect.
Yeah.
And so, did you get off your butt and like get the place opened? And like it's not open yet, but you said it's going to be. Did you get a space? Did you find a space that's going to work for you?
Yes.
Are you like building that space out? And are they actually going to go and repair all the things that you had a problem with? So, is anything good? Does anything good come easy, my friend? Okay. No. So we literally complain about it not being easy, and then we know that nothing good comes easy. So it sounds to me like you're in a perfect spot.
Yeah. I mean, I just would have I would have probably, I don't know. I don't know that I would actually have done anything different, because if I wasn't so excited and I didn't have.
If you wouldn't have taken the leap, you wouldn't have leaped.
No, if I would have checked out every single I would have found some problem.
So everyone,
with everything.
I would encourage you. Melissa is certainly right. Fine. If you're interested in doing something like this, what could you have done to make it easier to do the thing you're talking about the lawyer? If you would have before you found the space, if you would have had a relationship with a lawyer, would you have thought about saying, I don't mean like a personal relationship, but if or personal relationship, not romantic.
Well, Well, I do. I mean, that's what's crazy is that I have a friend from high school who's an attorney. I have other people that I was a paralegal. I have attorneys that I've worked for that. Do
you know lawyers that would have done contracts? Because that's the other thing.
Yeah.
So okay, let's get to that. What kept you from doing that part?
I didn't even think of it.
Okay.
I know that sounds bananas.
No, it doesn't sound bananas at all.
But I was so happy that I had found a space.
You know what? How often are we forced to just go ahead and click the contract? Like that's the other thing about Americans is we give ourselves a hard time about we're bad negotiating about value, and this chastisement you're giving yourself about not having someone look at the contract. How conditioned are we to just accept at face value?
Right.
We don't get a chance to walk up to CVS and say, "Hey, I'd actually like this. I'd like this pack of Trident gum I'd actually like it for 63 cents, not for 89 cents."
Right.
Is that how much Trident gum is anymore? Because I think back in the
know.
day, that might show my age a little bit. A couple of cents for some gum.
But do you remember Bubblicious?
I do remember Bubblicious. Yes. And Bazooka Joe. Ooh. I went to back when I needed a barber. Actually, I have a barber, Shaco Salon, Sterling down there is amazing. But he's got my beard kind of getting shaped up, you know.
Oh,
so
it's shaping good.
Getting, you know, no one tells men about how to do their beard, you know, and it's such, men don't ask. So, Melissa, we're back here. We've taken our second break. We're probably getting ready to wrap up today.
Yes.
I'm going to start off, I think, by doing another. So I think this is past, present, and future. Okay. So keep in mind, we drew the 10 of Swords earlier on. So remember what the 10 of Swords was? Like new beginnings,
yes,
right? Like the dawn, the break of the dawn,
yeah,
right? It's like through the
challenges,
the challenges, and the swords are the thoughts, you know, and they're, you know, the person's down. I'll show the camera here. The person's down. These are the rider weight group, which is considered to be kind of racist and all sorts of other things, but it's from the early 20th century, and you know, the person's.
What I would say about this, as far as it applies to me, is that when we talked about, you know, entrepreneurship, and what would I tell people who were, you know, venturing into it, is that every insecurity that you have is going to get tapped into.
Yep.
I mean, from I'm not pretty to I'm not smart
to what I have is not valuable.
Right.
And they have a right to not pay.
Right. And those things are just going to be going off all the time for a while. It's right. Not forever, but the willingness to feel those things, acknowledge them, and then break through them. So so important.
That's totally what I feel like that was talking about, was the thoughts that we have, the thoughts that drag us down, that keep us from going forward. I'm not good enough. So what this talks about is like, they don't ever go away. You just learn to incorporate them, understand when to listen to them, when not to listen to them, you know, and it's the break of the new dawn, right? There's new opportunities. We got all those old lessons, you know, and then kind of right now, you know, it's so interesting with the Five of Pentacles. You know, I've spent, you know, and, you know, I don't know what your circumstances are. However, try to open a new business it costs money and your resources, and even like your emotional, like, you know, stamina, right? And like everything's going wrong, and like, even the weather.
I've cried myself to sleep many nights.
Yeah,
like it's not good, right? So.
Well,
yeah, for sure.
These are how many times did you cry yourself to sleep about your kids?
Every night.
Right. So even the things that we love are worth the tears, you know?
Absolutely.
And so that's the thing, is like, it's the few people that have the ability to kind of go out and do this, they get the rare opportunity to see how much goes into doing this, you know? And so may I draw your future card?
Please, sir.
You ready? All right. There you go. So you get a chance to turn it or flip it. Turn it and or flip it. Oh, there you go. Ooh, no.
Holy shit.
No, I believe in, yep, keep it upside down. So the way the tarot works is it right side up and upside down. By the way, I don't believe that these have a religious connotation.
I don't.
Okay.
Yeah,
so just everyone, this is just a kind of a fun way just to kind of let's get into the devil. So this is 15, and it's one of the major arcanas. Sabotage and addiction is the upright. Oh man, can you believe that this is the reverse meaning? Aren't you so glad that you listened to me? Reversed key meanings. You ready?
Yeah.
Release and liberation. Yeah, you're away, like you're not trapped by the devil, right? So the reversed devil in a reading can be a good sign, pointing to a renewal of hope or abandonment of a toxic or unhealthy situation. This card in reverse points to freedom from an old and destructive pattern. It can also suggest that making a difficult or unpopular decision will be for the best. Sounds to me like you're the kind of person that makes unpopular decisions.
Sometimes.
For the best. So that's why I said, you know, you don't want to turn it back around. So what's up for the future? What's your plan? What's the biggest struggle right now?
Just, you know, getting the replacements that I need to be able to move forward with the build out. Like, without heat, without water. I can't paint. I can't.
That stuff's all going to be taken care of. The landlord's doing it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not your thing. What's the thing for you? Keep in mind, if we lose sight of the things that we have actionable, emotional, and mental control over, mental control is desires and aversions specifically. I desire to be a millionaire is a good example. Do you mind if we go through this real quick?
Yeah, of course.
So this is what I refer to as kind of like this is the empowerment kind of like focus that I do with my clients. Actions and emotions, no one can lift your finger except for you. Now, I can put a gun to someone you care about and try to manipulate or coerce you to move.
Right.
But that's breaking free will, right? Emotions. Who chooses what emotion that you're going to choose?
Me.
Right. If I harm your kid or something else, I can reasonably understand that if I did that to somebody, that what their emotion would be as a consequence.
Right.
Who's the one that makes the decision?
Me.
Right. And the biggest thing for therapy for me, understanding was that the emotion that I was choosing was chosen a long time ago because I lost sight of the fact that I had the ability to choose a different emotion to the stimuli that I was receiving. That's very profound. That's where I missed the boat.
Yeah.
Like that.
Too.
I remember 100. Talking to my therapist, and he said, I remember, like, I think I blacked out when I realized it. I think it, like, literally there's a couple times in therapy I think I blacked out. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? You know, and there's a couple different, I don't want to get in all of them. That's one. 3, mindset. And mindset's divided into 2, desires and aversions. Most people don't know what aversions are. What would you call an aversion?
Well, actually, in yoga philosophy, they're called dukkha's.
Okay, talk to me about those.
Well, it's aversions, right? Like things that real, imagined, that you're just averse to, and they don't necessarily have.
It's the word, the definition. What is it? What is this?
This is I don't want it. I'm pushing it away. I don't have much tolerance for, like,
right. What's the yoga for the desires, the things that you're calling into your life?
It's happier, Gara. I
keep in mind the microphone.
Oh, sorry. Well, you have to kind of define desires, because desires aren't necessarily good, right? For lack of a better word.
Keep in mind, we're not judging. Let's not judge whether they're good or bad. Let's only recognize what they are. You know, so a desire is typically something that we're calling to us, right?
Yes.
I think of it as, are we magnetically want to find it and want it to come into our life, or are we, like, with all of our being, don't want to have to deal with it, right?
Right.
I'm averse to having, like, people that I love have bad things happen to, right?
Yeah, of course.
I've got some brothers who have some speed problems with their cars, right? They tend to drive fast and I don't have children. However, I think about that, and I think about my niece, like, driving those cars. I'm like, oh my God, I just pray that she's responsible, you know?
Yeah.
And I just, that's the closest I get to those things. It doesn't feel very good.
Mm-mm.
So when I talk to my clients, when they're going through, if I may take you through this thing.
Sure.
I desire to be a millionaire. Or let's just say, I desire to not go to jail.
Different.
Right. Well, let's talk about I desire to not go to jail. Is that a desire or an aversion?
I think it's an aversion.
I think that you don't know what it is, because I think
I was going to say both. Really?
It's not possible to be both. The problem is we're using the wrong words with the wrong intents.
Well, I would say
we're not lining up words with intents. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it would be, I desire to not do behavior that's going to land me in jail.
Well, you're talking about that. I'm just talking about the phrase itself, the phraseology. I appreciate the fact that you're making it more clear. The problem is some people don't make it that clear. They don't stop at that. They stop at the I desire to not go to jail. The point here is that if our subconscious is paying attention to the things that we find that we have our deepest beliefs and biases. Remember, we talked about the reticular activation system. 4 things. Name. You and I are talking. If you have loved ones out there, people that know about you, Melissa, right? Charlie, Melissa. It's like your consciousness splits in half, and I tend to be very, entertaining. I'm not, not a terrible person to talk to. However, it doesn't matter how good this conversation is. Your subconscious almost It's like taps us on the shoulder and says, "Hey, I have this piece of information for you," and it gives you this like sensory receptor recording that's not really your name. It's just a sensation memory,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And then you almost you like fall back into the memory of the sensations to determine what was the tone of the voice that said it.
Right.
You know what I mean? What was the context? What was the intonation? And then we make a decision and we come back and say, "Charlie, I'm back. Sorry, what did I miss?" Or, "Excuse me, I'll be right back." Right. So name, sex. When we are with that person that we live with, that we're intimate with, we walk in the door and we know that's on the table. There's something about that, right?
Right. For sure.
3, danger. And you talked about it on the boardwalk or wherever you were running, right? Danger of not just physical harm. I believe there's also a danger of abandonment and exile. Memories of abandonment and exile are deeply, deeply ingrained. And we're not talking about those. 4th is deep belief and bias. So now when we take these mindsets and desires, those things become the thing that we program subconscious to start paying attention to, because we tend to do it over and over and over and over again, right? Especially things that we ruminate on. So looking at this, I desire to not go to jail, I think confuses our subconscious, because we don't know if it's a desire or a fear, because we're telling to not, but we're using the word desire. Right?
Right.
And so I think it's actually confusing to subconscious, and it doesn't know what we're looking for. Because we're only getting 5 to 10% of the 28.4 to 74 gigabytes that our subconscious is processing, right? So let's agree that that's the case. And this is kind of where I learned this becomes this concept of metacognition. Like, how can I look at my thoughts and not be my thoughts? And so going back to you, I desire to be a millionaire. Let's get rid of the idea about whether or not being a millionaire is good or bad or amoral, anything, right? What's the definition of a millionaire? Just the most simple definition that we can all agree on.
Bank account.
Having what?
$1 million.
Right. So if you have $999,999.99,
not a millionaire.
Right. So what I realized, at least in the depths of like when the people are going through the crisis, we tend to have these conversations and we go through step by step. We start showing that, okay, I desire to be a millionaire. Okay. Do we agree that the only people we control are ourselves regarding our actions and our emotions?
Absolutely.
And our thought process. But the problem is we're dealing with our thought process, so referring to the other two. So we don't need to litigate that. We agree, right? And I'd ask anyone that's listening to this, just do that for yourself. Agree or not agree. Can I make you move your fingers without coercing or manipulating you? And then I'm breaking free will, right? Okay. If you don't have the $1 million, who does?
Someone else.
Someone else. And so that becomes the focus, is what others have, not where I can get my $1 million.
Right, because they are
it's now
so much luckier. They are so much more successful.
It becomes a scarcity.
Yeah.
So the way I desire to be a millionaire. And so so that's what I recognize. It's like, oh my God, are you telling me that I need to actually stop? And this was a therapy moment for me as well. I'm like, wait a minute. So I got to actually stop and pay attention to what I'm thinking, and then make a decision on whether or not that's acceptable and whether or not I want to stay there, or whether I ought to change that and start living. And so then, this gets into kind of my concepts of like what's emotional intelligence, right? Because when we get into jealousy and enviousness, those are considered to be bad emotions. The problem is that they start to show you desire. When I get jealous or envious, that lets me know like what I really want.
Right.
And then it gives me a chance to actually go then. And then if I just push the emotion away, then I don't have the opportunity to analyze what's the thing that I'm missing in my life that I'm seeing elsewhere or other people that I wish that I had.
Right.
Right. And I think that leaning into that, just like anger and all these other things, goes to this emotion illinks of being willing to destroy something beautiful. So you're willing to take someone else's away from them in order for you to have your $1 million.
Well, what's interesting about that is that it goes on even in the yoga industry, right? Like, if this person opens a studio over here, it's going to take away from me, instead of embracing the fact, and instead of embracing the fact that, well,
they're going to hone me, steel sharpens steel, right?
Yeah. Instead of embracing the idea that, well, I'm going to meet a need that's there. You're going to meet probably a different need, right? And there's enough to go around.
Right. But the thing is, we want to get into comfort and then not have to work. We want to build the business and then not have to worry about making sure it's still providing a good product. You know, like I think it goes back, in my opinion, it just kind of goes back to that fear of, but wait a minute, once I build it, do I really need to, like, why can't I just, what do you mean I need to make sure I'm still giving a good product to my clients? What do you mean I still need to go back and continue to learn?
That's the job.
I get it, but it's just like,
yeah.
But part of us is just like, I don't want to have to do that work. It was so difficult to build it in the first place. Why do I need to do that? Come on, give me a break. Go open a yoga studio somewhere else. I don't
know. I mean,
I agree with you.
Would there be Inch Law if there wasn't Charlie Inch?
I don't know if there's no other lawyer with the last name Inch that I know of.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you are.
I am. I'm hoping to not be. So I'm literally, like where I am in my entrepreneur stage is I had this like side hustle of Inch Law for so long, since like 2007 or 2008. And just, I didn't even know what the fuck I wanted to do. It wasn't even my idea. My best, thank God I had a best friend in high school that got, like I had no direction.
High school friends.
Right. Yeah. But it's like he saved me from having no clear image. Like I had very little support at the house for my intellect or for my, anything. And there was some trauma going on there. It was an unsafe place. My mom worked night shift and my dad grew up poor and was a scary dude, I grew up in the 80s, And so, so it's, but we go through these experiences, the one thing I recognize with and it's interesting to hear your story about like your family and their things. Cause it hits home for me too. Right. In certain things and just the opportunity to build these businesses has given me the opportunity to kind of just completely reimagine kind of why I am where I am and just have a completely different view on what does it mean to provide legal services to the community? Like what's actually needs to be there, and it's just been so cool to kind of do it. I feel like we need to draw another card real quick.
Let's do it.
But I feel like I've been talking too much and you're supposed to be my guest.
Oh, hi. I was just thinking about how much we chatted about it outside, but I can't believe, and I don't know about you, I can't speak for you, but given my background, the odds of me actually becoming, a business owner and doing this on my own, they've got to be pretty scary. Like, it's got to be pretty small.
Why?
Well, I was told that things about myself growing up that this was not in the cards, right? For me to be a standalone woman doing her thing, I was not given any type of evidence that would ever be possible.
We are not who they told us.
No,
they thought we were. Like that's the biggest. The biggest thing.
It's crazy.
That's the belief system in our minds that I didn't realize that I had was that I believed that I was. I remember being young and saying, I wish people could just tell me what my talent was so I could focus on it. I remember asking my parents that. I was like, why can't you just tell me what I'm good at so I can just focus on that?
Yeah.
And my parents were like, you have to figure that out. We don't know what you're good at.
I didn't even get that.
I was like, but you guys tell me everything I'm bad at. Why do you tell me everything I'm bad at, but you won't tell me what I'm good at? Why do you have the ability to do that? And then you say you don't have the ability to tell me what I'm good at?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, what happened with you? What was your situation?
Well, I'm adopted and I had a older sibling who I think bonded very well with our mom. I don't think she bonded with me. I mean, this is all like, I didn't know it at the time, clearly, but it was just a really dysfunctional, toxic environment because of my, parental unit's own stuff. And it kind of, of course, bled down to us. And I left home really, really young. Which also was not, normal in my community. And I had a lot of support when I was doing the status quo. When I wasn't doing the status quo, I had no support. That's my story.
So long as the status quo being what they believed you ought to do, or what they believe other people that were doing correct, and a woman in your situation ought to be doing as well.
Correct. And I've done a lot of things outside of the status quo, and I think I'm a better person for it, but I certainly haven't received any support around that.
Mm.
For example, the whole, court thing. I asked my family to be there when I recanted. No one came. They wouldn't do it. But they were right. But they were right there when he got convicted.
Yeah, they only want to support you for the things that they feel that are correct. They don't want to stand behind you when you're making a decision that's like that you feel is correct for you, and it's like they don't want to honor that.
I mean, another example is my boyfriend and I, my senior year, became pregnant, and I wanted to have the child, and it was not it was not supported.
Right.
Things like that were outside. And I think there's so many of us like that,
Right. I think it's important to have these conversations, I think there's a lot of these conversations are still happening in households today that people that are listening to this may be able to recognize. And, if I may just kind of speak to the trauma of the things that we've been talking about, there's no right or wrong answer in my mind, right? The only thing that's correct, I've got just love and kindness. And can I tell you, it's from my perspective, we're talking about trauma. We're talking about trauma-informed stuff. We're talking about trauma focus. We're talking about all these things, trauma. Can I tell you, we don't talk enough about what does healing through the trauma look like? No one talks about that. They talk about the trauma. And I think it's really difficult to get there because none of us, it's so ethereal, right?
Oh my gosh, that's the word I was just thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's in the ethers, and there's and even our experiences, even the recognition that we all have this experience or something similar to us, that our subconscious gives us this sensory input memory of hearing our names. Have you ever talked to anyone about that? I've never talked to anybody about that until I started, there's some of these things I never talked about with anyone until therapy.
Well, yeah, I'm not trying to trauma dump. I'm
just
saying that, my father committed suicide when I was 34, and it was a very, very painful day.
Yeah.
And that shaped me.
Right.
Because it gives me a profound appreciation for mental health.
Right.
And treating people with mental health, and that to not discriminate,
right,
and to have compassion and understanding that the brain's an organ, right? It's like any other organ that's being just
it's not just the brain, it's also the neurology. It's like the vagus nerve. It's then it's like the thought. We still don't know where thought is. I feel like there's still some questions as to whether or not we know where thought and experiences are really stored when you talk.
I know.
So I guess the where I was going with that is, when we break our leg, if we had most of us have had a leg that worked properly before it got broken. So what healing is, because you remember what it was like to walk.
Yeah. You get the cast off. It's like
some of these psychological wounds happen to us before we're even cognizant. These things are building from 0 to 20 years old. We're learning how to fear before we have cognitive memory. I was talking to a buddy of mine. There's proof right now that brain scans of infant boys that the brain changes after circumcision. That literally,
I've always wondered about that. I was like, what?
I don't want to. I don't know.
We don't have to get there.
Yeah. I'm just. These are just.
Always kind of been
these are just.
It's kind of
Yeah, but it's but that's becoming more of a conversation as well. That we just take for granted. Let's cut the foreskin off of men's penises before, and they don't feel it. Don't worry. And now there's,
I think they,
well, there's now,
they feel it.
did the kid cry? I don't know. I don't, but maybe the kid cries all the time. I don't have any. Right. And I don't want to get, if it's just interesting that he, like, out of nowhere, we were started talking about this. He goes, man, I just ran across a study that says that like the boys' brainwaves literally change after that. And I'm not, there's no, the bullshit of all this is there's no way to avoid trauma.
No.
Because we don't have the resources for every one of us to survive forever and still procreate. Like this world would not be able to handle that.
Right.
And we're not able to make it to Mars yet. 2, we haven't even figured out how to become immortal. We're going to have to die. Mm-hmm. And so life fears death. Like it fears death. It fears not going on.
Right.
And then 3, we have, like, part of our neurology has this empathic neurological system that our neurologies literally regulate with each other. As soon as we are together in proximity, now there's a regulation. We now can recognize that. There's a social engagement system. Like my neurology is regulating off of yours. I'm feeding into your facial expressions and vice versa. And so until those things completely go away, then trauma is never going to go away.
Right.
Because you must learn to fear death, physical harm. Like all these people that have those, they don't feel pain. Right?
Right.
Right. And it's like a whole issue. You don't feel pain. And now there's all the consequences that you now have. Behavior.
The hot stove, right?
Right. So until that all ends, which it doesn't seem it's going to end anytime in the near future, we're not going to be able to get over it. So it goes back to the original thing that I was saying is, what does healed trauma look like? And the best I can, and I'm not there yet because so often I don't do it. It's curiosity, but it's curiosity without assumption.
I would
if that
say,
makes any sense.
Well, I would say that it looks like empathy and compassion and the willingness to use my own experiences to inform my relationships with other people and be willing to meet people where they are, right? And not assume that even not assume that I know.
Right.
Like, I don't know what it's like to be coming out of jail after 20 years, right? Like as a man, I don't know, but I understand my own experience, my own pain and my own healing, so that I can meet that person.
I think it's easier to have that curiosity and compassion when you know the person's going through something. Mm-hmm. It's a lot harder when they're a stranger that seems to have they're driving a Land Rover, dressed well, and they get out and they bitch at you at the side of the street.
On Facebook.
Right, on Facebook or whatever. And so those are the places where it's really difficult for us not to have assumptions and to continue to have the empathy, compassion, and the grace, right?
Right.
I read something or saw something the other day that said grace is armor for the soul, not for it's armor for your soul. It's your soul's ability to have, grace, even though it looks, and even though they told you they did it on purpose, the ability to understand that they know not what they don't know. Like forgive them for they know not what, even if they, right. Yeah. Something someone said. And I don't really,
I know, I got you.
Yeah. This is not really, but, and I recognize that is part of, part of that whole thing, and I feel like I'm being very elusive with my words here, and I'm doing it to a certain extent on purpose, because it is so difficult to talk to people about where do their assumptions start to show up.
Well, here we go. I'll give you an example. My dealings with my landlord, right? I'm assuming that there are a bunch of white, rich, old school Richmond guys, right, who don't care about me at all.
Looking at a woman that doesn't know what she's doing and is,
I don't know if
open up a yoga studio. Who goes
eating granola right now?
I thought I smelled patchouli.
Right, but I don't know if that's a fact.
Right.
It's my own,
Right. And then sometimes just turn to him saying, look, I put everything I owned into this place, Well,
that's what I finally said. I said, look, if I was your daughter, your sister, your wife, and this was going on, would you think this is okay? And that's when they responded.
Yeah, pull one card, and then we'll call it a day.
Oh, I did it again.
Okay. Wheel of Fortune. This is 10, and then this is the final bit. What is this? Is this for all the?
It's for all the money.
This is for all the money. Okay. Someone out there is just like, I know what this card means. Here we go. Ha! Delays and setbacks. The reverse wheel of fortune in your reading asks you to focus on what you can actually control when things feel chaotic. Look at that. Are you refusing to let something come to an end or resisting the growth? Everything's changing around you, which can feel uncomfortable, but this time of instability is temporary. What is ending now will create space for something new to come in its place. So, all right, with that, I think that's perfect. So thank you for being the guest on whatever we're starting to call this, but we're the Trauma Philosopher on YouTube.
I like it.
Inch Law is the law office that we're here, and you're here at the Holistic Life Studio space here in Richmond, Virginia. And we are just trying to talk about the things that no one's talking about.
I think that's the name.
What are we not talking about?
What are we not talking about?
So, all right. Well, everyone, thank you for Melissa being on the show. And I can't wait to find out what's going on with your yoga studio. We did talk about me getting some soul totems and some meditation stations in there so that she can actually, start supporting some of the things that we're building out here. But Absolutely. It's been such a great time. Yeah, I can't wait. Everyone, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Melissa.